strong. I think, the comparison isn't really apples to apples in my view in terms of YouTube and what's happening with TikTok. I think TikTok is a pretty different, platform and form of media. Probably has a little bit of a different, younger skewing audience as well. But it probably could be a little bit competitive in the broad strokes, sure.
So how do you see TikTok potentially grabbing some market share from YouTube?
Well, look, at the end of the day, there's only so many minutes in a person's day, whether it's a young person or an older one. So it probably does take some time away from some of the competitive, the environment that's out there, whether it's YouTube or I look probably more closely at a Snapchat or certainly Instagram or Facebook as the ones that are probably could have some audience share or competition from TikTok.
Now, clearly there is a lot of platforms, a lot of places that creators can pick from. How do creators decide which platform is the right one for them?
Well, it's got to be about the individual app, I think, and what one is sort of most comfortable with. The thing that I see with TikTok, I mean, it's a really fun medium, and some of the things that are out there, whether they're sponsored or just user-generated content, are very much self-generated, very much user-generated short-form video content. So I think, there are probably folks and parties that look at that medium as something that they're better suited for, certainly different than linear programming or broadcast television programming.
Now, it does look easy when you look at the finished product, but clearly, as we saw, a lot of work does go into this. So when some of these content creators are looking at whether to go the YouTube versus Facebook or TikTok route, how do these different organizations' monetization strategies differ?
Well, I think the TikTok landscape is very, very remarkable, and right now, from an advertising monetization perspective, is really different than YouTube that you just mentioned, or frankly, a lot of the other platforms that are out there. TikTok comes from a different part of the world than the U.S. It's got a huge user base, obviously, in places like India and China for sure, and this is generated content, basically. I come from the digital music and digital entertainment world, so Musical.ly is something that they acquired and incorporated into this, and it's all about, short-form video content, lip-syncing, and having fun. Basically, music is a really big piece of it, and what I think is really interesting about TikTok and ByteDance, which is the parent, is that they're really one of the first that I'm seeing that are sort of looking at this area of audience and monetizing that connectivity between celebrities and artists and their fan base, basically. And I think it's a potentially very disruptive and explosive thing that's out there from a digital media perspective.
And we're certainly seeing from the regulators' perspective, they're certainly starting to put more pressure on YouTube and some of these other platforms. They want to better monitor things like hate speech or other inappropriate content. How is that going to affect revenue?
Well, look, I mean, it's a very serious consideration for sure when something scales the way it does. I mean, the TikTok app, I think, is over 1.5 billion downloads right now. So obviously that's something that anyone, whether it's TikTok or ByteDance, would have to look at, very, very seriously. But from what I'm starting to see, not so much on the regulatory side, but just in the private sector, TikTok is starting to announce pretty significant content alliances in the media world. There was one that was just announced with one of the largest independent music organizations called Merlin. And I think that there'll be 2 or 3 major recorded music deals following at some point soon as well. So I think, given that kind of private, licensing negotiation that's going on, the aspects about privacy and security will probably get figured out and, addressed as they go through those negotiations.
And just quickly, in terms of demographics, a recent survey from Piper Jaffray found that YouTube actually surpassed Netflix as the streaming platform of choice for teenage consumers. How is YouTube staying competitive when you now have to include all these other streaming services as well?
I think they'll have to continue to evolve programming, whether it's with TV alliances or providing live programming or changing their mix. But again, I don't necessarily know if these things are mutually exclusive. There's been, tons of social video applications, Vine, we can go back to things like MySpace, even Yahoo and AOL in the old days, and some of them just, mature and maybe they decline or they go away or they morph into something else. I think TikTok is a very interesting new medium. I'm certainly watching what they're doing with music. I think they're going to evolve a service that is somewhat like a Spotify now that could be, very, very disruptive. They're starting to roll it out in India and some of the emerging markets. So they're doing a lot to differentiate and broaden their reach, and I think some of their competitors will have to as well.